Growing up, I was the youngest of three boys. And being that I was the youngest, I wasn't always accepted and invited to play with my older brother and his friends. This one day, they invited me to hang out with them. And the reason they invited me to hang out is because they wanted to play kick the can. But they wanted to play kick the can with teams, and they needed another person. They didn't have another person. So they said, hey, Aaron, you're in. They subbed me in and they allowed me to play kick the can with them. My brother had this friend named Wilbur, and Wilbur was always into something. So we decided that we were going to play kick the can, but Wilbur has a bright idea. Wilbur says, hey, we should play it inside. And we all just kind of look like, you can't really play kick the can inside, Wilbur. I know the perfect place for us to play kick the can inside. So all of us are looking at him and we say, where? Wilbur said, I was walking the other day and I see that they just built a brand new house in the neighborhood. It's newly built, it's freshly painted, and they always leave the door unlocked because nobody lives there yet. We should go play kick the can there. So my brother and his friends are like, yeah, that's cool. I say, excuse me, I don't think that's a good idea. We're going to get in trouble. You know, my voice is a little higher back then. And here come the jokes about Aaron being a scaredy cat. Here come the jokes about Aaron being a chicken. And they finally look at me and they say, Aaron, if you don't come this time, you're never coming to play with us again. So I bend to the peer pressure and I say, all right, I'll come. So they walk as a group to the house. I decide that I'm going to take my bike. Now, you might be listening to this thinking, well, the reason he took his bike is because he wanted to get there faster. But the actual reason I took my bike is because even at 9 years old, I had enough sense to know that this is a dumb idea and I need a getaway car. So we all arrive at the house and it is just as Wilbur described. It is newly built. It's freshly painted. There's actually wet paint on the walls and everything smells new and looks new and it's fresh and it's time to play kick the can. So we start playing kick the can in this house and we're finding all different places to hide out because that's how you play. And Wilbur, this was a great idea. This is fun. About 15 minutes into the game, Wilbur kicks a hole into the wall. And instantly, I think, oh, why did I do this? Why am I here with these people? And all of my brother's friends are like, ooh, like they don't understand what just happened and how serious this is. The intelligent mind would say, hey, Wilbur just kicked a hole in the wall. We gotta go. But the criminal mind that breaks into open houses isn't always the logical mind. We all continued to play kick the can in this house. But what we didn't know is that when Wilbur kicked a hole in the wall, it was so loud that the neighbors that were walking by heard it and realized that there's some kids playing in a brand new house. About 10 minutes later, as we're continuing to play the game, we hear Wilbur shout, 5-0, 5-0. 5-0 means the popo here. And for those of y'all that may not know 5-0, you may not know the popo, it means the police have arrived to scoop up these rebellious children that broke into an open house. So as soon as Wilbur shouts, 5-0, my brother and his friends freeze. But the kid had a getaway car. I went out the back door, hopped on my bicycle, and rode that bike to my house as fast as I have ever ridden it back to my house. I get home, I run up the stairs, and I hop in bed. It is 1 p.m. And if mom asks any questions, I'm just gonna tell her I'm asleep. So I'm in bed, fully clothed, and I hear, Aaron Christopher? Whenever I would hear my mom speak in that tone and use my first and my middle name, it means that I was caught. But the criminal mind isn't the logical mind. Yes, ma'am? Where have you been? I I was up here asleep. I told my mom that I had been up there asleep at 1 p.m. in the afternoon, as if she was going to believe that her child, who had never physically exerted himself in his entire life, was so exhausted that he took a nap at 1 p.m. in the afternoon. She comes in my room and says, I'm going to give you one more chance. Where have you been? Mom, I was in here asleep. She says, get out of the bed. If you've been asleep, can you explain to me why there is a trail of white paint from the bottom of my staircase leading to your bedroom? I don't remember anything else after that, y'all. My parents believed it's spare the rod, spoil the child, and I'm going to leave it like that. That was the first moment that I remember being awakened to the downside of seeking the validation of other people. Our desire for external validation, our desire to belong, it begins in our childhood. Maybe you weren't 9 years old like me, but isn't it interesting how the seeds that are planted in a child reap a harvest in the adult? From the time we are young, we learn to seek validation from other people. As kids, our parents are the heroes, and we want so badly to be affirmed by them. So as kids, we're riding the bike and we're saying, hey, look, Ma, no hands. And in some environments, kids are not taught to use their voice. They are given their voice. Maybe you started your life off being told, if I want your opinion, I'll give it to you. Maybe you heard, keep crying, I'm going to give you something to cry about. Maybe you heard, boy, you don't know nothing. You're just a child. Sit there and shut up. You should be seen, not heard. Or maybe you bring a report card home that doesn't have an A on it and your parents flip, because we only accept A's in this household. The combination of words and actions in our childhood, or the absence of affirming words or actions, instill a lack of confidence and the belief that we are not enough. And a child that is raised believing that he or she is not enough will always spend all of its energy in seeking the validation of its parents. But it doesn't stop there, because the problem is when we do not address the traumas of our youth, they end up openly displayed through unhealthy behavior now that we're adults. Many have complex trauma due to unmet needs as a child. And when that's not dealt with, now it's even worse, because what was once a look, Ma, no hands, has now become you finding it hard to make any decision in your life. What was once a look, Ma, no hands, has now become you feeling sad, guilty, or anxious depending on the approval of other people. What was once a look, Ma, no hands, has now become you seeking excessive reassurance that you are doing the right thing. Oh, I'm gonna get off your toes in a minute. But what was once look, Ma, no hands, has now become you rejecting opportunities and experiences that you want because you're so afraid that others won't approve of. The look, Ma, no hands has turned into you feeling ashamed if someone questions your work, your actions, or your beliefs. Ultimately, many spend their days in a cycle of depending on external validation. They spend so much time in the cycle wherein they have become so addicted to the approval of others that they rely on their opinions to define their self-worth. Living for the approval of others, it's like building your house on sand. It's unstable. It's uncertain. It's easily washed away by the slightest doubt or criticism. And the saddest truth is that when we rely on external validation, we hand the keys over to our self-worth. We allow others to dictate how we feel about ourselves. And in doing so, we lose touch of our authentic self. The real you is no longer even in the room. And when the real you is not in the room, you stop making decisions based on what's right for you. Rather, you make decisions based on what you think will earn the approval of everyone else. And in the process, we diminish our own light. If you're listening to me and you're saying, Yeah, he's talking about me. Then I want to submit this question to you. How long will you allow your self-esteem to be held hostage by the whims of those around? Because there comes a time when enough is enough. Because as we often talk about, you're the captain of your own ship. You're in control of your life. You're not a child anymore. And as adults, the only reason we constantly seek the validation of others is because we have not done the work to validate ourselves. And if you're not mindful, you will be 50 years old chasing the "I'm proud of you" from your father. As we grow, so must our understanding of where true validation comes from. Imagine for a moment what your life would look like if you didn't need anyone else's approval to feel good about yourself. Imagine the freedom, imagine the confidence, imagine the joy that would fill your days. This is the power of self-validation. And I've come to tell you that it is available to each and every one of us. The thing about validation is what you crave when you are unsure. It's what you crave when you're unsure of a moment, of a place, when you're unsure of yourself. But ironically, seeking validation is counterintuitive because the things that we chase are already within. We chase happiness, it's already within. We chase peace, it's already within. And whatever you chase runs from you. Think about it in the natural. It can't be a chase if something's not running. And when it comes to validation, rather than chasing the lie that you are not enough, you must receive the truth that you are. The truth is, the fact that you were born says that God validated you. And if you were validated by the creator of the universe before you did or said a thing, and if it was already established that you are enough, why are you spending so many of your days believing that you're not and seeking the validation from other people? Validation is about us being seen the way that we want to be seen. However, I've heard it said that there's always going to be someone who doesn't see your worth. You just have to make sure that it's not you. And there are some people you will never be able to please. But guess what? Those are not your people. Because when you did it all wrong, they had a problem. But when you did it all right, they still had a problem. And one of the things that we have to let go of is any thought or inclination that we must fit in every group. Never confuse belonging with fitting in. Because belonging comes from you. Belonging comes from within. Part of the reason we seek external validation is because external validation feels amazing. Let's not lie about it. You get a compliment from a friend or a recognition from the boss, you get 1,000 likes on a post on Instagram, and you're feeling pretty good about yourself. But here's the thing. Validation will always leave you wanting. The reward of validation leaves a lot faster than it came. I remember I was working for a company and they started doing Employee of the Year. So the first year they gave up this award, they gave it actually to my general manager. I was an AGM. And I'm sitting there wondering how he received that award. And the reason I'm sitting there wondering how he received the award is because I know that 90% of the time, this guy was not here. This guy was not around. And being the AGM, I was the one actually leading the team. So when that happened, I instantly had a desire to receive the validation and get that Employee of the Year award. So the first year, I didn't get it. The second year, I worked just as hard. I didn't get it. They gave it to someone else who was really deserved. The third year, I worked just as hard, and I didn't get it. The fourth year, I didn't get it, and I'm starting to wonder about these people. I'm starting to wonder about the voting committee. The fifth year, I received it, and I was happy for 30 seconds. As quick as that high came, that high dropped because I started to realize that none of this mattered. It wasn't like people started treating me differently. It wasn't even like I received anything besides the trophy. I literally gained nothing but a fleeting moment of validation. And years later, now I can't help but think, how much more fulfilled would I have been if rather than focusing on others, I celebrated me? How much more fulfilled would I have been if rather than allowing their validation to be a measurement of my value, I celebrated myself for myself? And if you're listening to me, I want to challenge you to look within and to celebrate you. Look within and celebrate the fact that you are a unique, irreplaceable individual with gifts, talents, and a purpose that can't nobody fulfill but you. When you realize this, that need for external validation begins to fade. And when that need begins to fade, you start to live your life from a place of authenticity and a place of true self-love. So how do we cultivate self-validation? The very first one is reconnect with your inner values. Take a moment to ask yourself, what do I truly value? What are the guidelines of my life? When you align your actions with your values, you'll find that validation naturally flows from within. Do the actions you take and the words you say feel authentic and true to what you believe? If it does, you're doing the right thing for you. If it doesn't, it's time to adjust. Next, embrace self-compassion. When you make a mistake, remind yourself that growth comes from embracing your imperfection and not shaming yourself because of them. Next, celebrate your own victories. Always remember, you don't need anyone else's permission to celebrate you. Acknowledge your successes no matter how small, and let those successes be a reminder of your resilience, your strength, and what is true about you. Number 4, limit the noise. Be mindful of how much you allow external voices to influence your actions and your decisions. I love what Les Brown says. He says it's not garbage in, garbage out, as we've often heard, but it's garbage in, garbage stays. And so we need to be very careful to protect our space. Take control of your mind and your heart and choose to focus on what truly nourishes you. Lastly, surround yourself with love. Spend time with people who appreciate who you are and what you bring to the table. These are the people that will celebrate your journey through self-validation and ultimately will celebrate your growth along the way. In the fast-paced world, it's easy to lose sight of what truly matters. But today, I invite you to remember that your worth is not something you need to chase. It's something you already possess. By embracing self-validation, you step into your true purpose and you become the person that you were created to be. Always remember that growth is a journey, it's not a destination. I'm in it with you, and I'll see you on